And when was that awakening? Like the awakening moment, that initiation, that kind of like dark night of the soul where you're kind of like, okay, I need to perhaps reconcile with my mom and where I'm at.
I mean, the journey never ends. But probably 6 or 7 years ago, I started to transition into just being me and not giving a fuck whatever anyone else thought.
Yes.
And just being like, this is me. And number one is taking care of ourselves so that we can then help others. It's been progressing. But yeah, I would say 6-7 years ago.
And because I see in the book you have poems written. So take us through this time.
Yeah. So in the book, each chapter has an opener. It's either a poem I wrote from when I was a kid.
So you were a writer when you were growing up?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And it's crazy. Through all of my...
You kept all of them?
I have everything.
This is like from your diary because it says Karena, age 13.
Oh yeah. I still have the handwritten spiral bound notebooks.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know through all of the years of me moving, because when I first moved to LA, I was like moving every 2 months. I kept a box with all of my writing. So each chapter has either a writing, a journal entry, a poem from me, or my sister, who's our executive director at the foundation, or my dad, he's a therapist, also a musician, so his lyrics. So I really integrated my family.
Oh my goodness. Okay, Brave Table fam, I just have to read you all an excerpt. This is chapter 11, A Walk to the Corner Store. Look into the crystal ball. I can see my life begin to fall to the ground. Look around me. I can see the hateful smiles at home. I feel all closed up at home. I wish you would shut up. I won't sit on your furniture. I'll just stand here and act mature. You're so unfair. Why don't you care? Standing in the dark, drop to my knees, begging you to forgive me, please. But that's okay. I'll never forgive you. What I know now, only if you knew, maybe I could run into the night or just stay through one more fight. Karena, age 13. What was happening during this time?
Yeah. So age 13 was around my suicide attempt when my parents were fighting a lot. My mother had just been diagnosed, and she had, my father was part of the Antichrist to her. And she always came to me to tell me like everything that he was bad about. So she basically brainwashed me as a little girl into believing her own, what she believed within her illness. And it's a brain disease. And so...
And she made up these stories.
Yeah. That he was a bad person. And then I hated my dad. And then I didn't trust her. And then I didn't want to sit on the furniture that it was a very tough upbringing of knowing who to trust. And if you've been through it, you know. And it's a very tough thing to transition out of once you realize what is real and what is not as you grow up. And but then also having that empathy as you become an adult of releasing that hatred for both parents, relearning how to love each parent, having empathy for the sick one, and then rebuilding that relationship with my father. So that was it.
I mean, what was that healing journey like when you finally kind of understood where your mom is at? I feel like we all have that, waking point where we're kind of like, okay, we're going to love them for who they are. We're going to love them for where they're at. First, it's like, so many of the signs of grief and like the stages of grief and the anger and the resentment. And then we kind of come into this acceptance. Where was that in your time frame or season of life?
That took a long time. My healing process started in my early 20s, getting back to fitness, meditation, therapy.
Oh yes, therapy. What did therapy work really well for you?
Oh yeah. I think therapy is an ongoing thing. I'll
Oh,
take
yes.
breaks and then I'm like, hey, I'm ready for you again.
Right? Especially when you find that one.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like a dance to find the right therapist too.
Yeah. And I have different therapists, teachers, you know, it takes an army.
Healers. I've got my different healers as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the things.
But the process, you know, I was fearful of my mother once I realized what schizophrenia was. And I ran from her and she ran from me and she was in and out of my life. But once I did, you know, back in the 90s and 2000s, no one was talking about it. So I did my own research to like truly understand. And then I went to a course with NAMI, National Alliance of Mental Illness, on family to family. I am now on their board of advisors. But it's really just educating yourself and then learning empathy. Like, okay, this is not, it's like if a family member has cancer. My mother had a brain disease and she just passed away, almost her 1 year anniversary, or I don't know what you call it.
Wow, yeah.
September
Anniversary.
15th.
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
But
Sending her love.
but yeah, I mean, she was afraid of her own illness all of her life and she denied it. She didn't want to take medication. But I was with her the last 3 days of her life and I told her about The Big Silence, the book.
The book was coming out.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, so it's so recent of her transition.
Yeah, the book. I thought I was going to write this thing in a year, but it wasn't ready. So then I had to write an epilogue. And I told her about the foundation that my sister and I were doing in honor of her so that no one had to suffer in silence like she did her entire life. And her father was also schizophrenic and committed suicide. So she always had a tough life. So
See you next time at the Brave Table.